My name is Randi Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week. I am here again with my daughter, Avery Rubenstein.
Hi, everyone.
There's, if you're watching the video, the 200 people who actually watch the video on YouTube. I have just a little tiny baby here in my lap. A little cold, cozy baby.
She does look exactly like a little infant right now.
Doesn't she? Her name's Hazel. For anybody listening on audio, Hazel's here with me, our little freckled Frenchie, and she was cold, so now she's on my lap, wrapped up in a little blanket. What do you say these dogs are?
Perpetual toddlers.
No, you told someone that they were my...
What? What, your children, now that you're an empty nester?
Yeah. Somebody told me that you said that they're my mom's replacement children.
Oh, I did say that.
Which I thought was pretty accurate.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so I wanted Avery to come on really just because I thought it'd be fun to catch up and to let you guys be a fly on the wall of one of our catch-up conversations. And we catch up all the time, but we haven't really sort of, I don't feel like we've recapped winter break. I don't think that we've recapped winter break. There was also, I just saw we love to watch reels and to share reels back and forth. And I just watched a hilarious Modern Family reel that I think I should
love
play.
that show.
I think I should play for the listeners and for us.
Is it a Phil?
Oh, it's so good. And I think it will go into, let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, shit. Oh, wait, I know where it is because I already sent it to Wall and Kaka, so I can just pull it up. Kaka said it was definitely one of her favorite episodes. I haven't seen this episode, so you're going to know exactly what episode it is.
Yeah, I've seen the show a million times.
And then you can direct me to it.
I watched that show all the way through, and then I got to the last episode and I restarted it. I love that show.
Didn't you say there was like things about that show that reminded you of our family or something? Or maybe everyone feels that way.
Very much, it reminded me of our family.
We have a big gay component to our family.
Whoever made her son cry has messed with the wrong moms.
Lesbians.
While often lumped together, gay men and lesbians have less in common than one might think.
Like in the Venn diagram of sexual identity. You have gay men
and straight men, both the same gender.
Then you have gay men
and straight women, both attracted to the same gender. But gay men and lesbians?
Nothing.
I am so sorry we have to meet like this, but I'm sure you can understand as parents the instinct to protect your child.
Yeah, it's what makes me want to punch you in the neck right now.
Wow, so your son gets all of his aggression.
Okay, let's all take a timeout.
That's a good idea. This is getting a little heated.
Yeah, Pam, we don't want another incident like at the lumberyard.
Oh my God, you guys go to the lumberyard too? I didn't know they had a ladies' night.
Not the bar, Sally. Okay, you know what? He's trying to be nice, and you just called him Sally.
Yeah, you're not being very helpful, Peppermint Patty.
Let's just enough. I'm going to give you a little homework assignment. I want you and your kids to have a family play date. Maybe if the four of you can get along, you can set a better example for your children.
I think that's a wonderful idea, Pam.
Fine.
Cam?
Fine. We'll host, obviously.
Obviously.
Well, I assume you have an unfinished woodworking project at your house.
You've got a lot of nerve.
Yeah, you've got half a canoe in our living room.
I look forward to your frittata.
Oh, why? Are you visiting us in 2008?
Can you believe he's straight in real life?
That frittata line freaking
plays
killed me.
He plays a gay man so well.
I mean, what did he say?
No, Peppermint, he's like, whatever you say, Peppermint Patty. That episode is so funny.
Peppermint Patty was so gay.
It was such a funny episode.
I mean, just things that weren't on my radar when I was a kid. Like the fact that my two siblings were gay. That wasn't on my radar either. But
I loved the helpful Venn diagram. It's pretty informative, honestly.
Yeah. My 2 gay siblings weren't on my radar, and Peppermint Patty being gay was not on my radar either. I don't think it was on.
Really?
No.
Oh my
It
God,
was
Peppermint Patty is such a les.
no, I don't think. I mean, maybe gay little gay girls, maybe they knew, but I didn't know.
Definitely
It
chance.
it wasn't a thing I was thinking about.
I guess that's fair. I probably didn't think about it then either, but I didn't watch Charlie Brown as a kid.
No. No, there was better cartoons
We had better options, I think.
for sure. That's probably
Mhm.
why I don't like cartoons, because the options just weren't great when I was growing up.
Yeah, you'd like them now because we've shown you
Yeah.
How to Train Your Dragon.
But they seem so realistic. I mean, those
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay. So some of the things I was thinking about for this conversation were breaking down our family vacation over winter
Mm-hmm.
break, because there's been a lot of vacation drama, as people come back from vacation with their little kids and realize it's not a vacation. Most of the time, it's just a trip. And they had all these hopes and dreams, and then it was a freaking nightmare. And
Right.
so,
Just
I,
dealing with your family in another location.
yeah, exactly. With probably less helpers around than you normally have, or thinking you're going to have more helpers because you're with extended family, and then being disappointed that
Mm-hmm.
they're really not that helpful, and actually making you feel judged every time your exhausted kid who's traveling and dealing with a different time zone is melting down, whining, freaking out. It's stressful
Right.
to travel with little kids. Um, but it's not stressful to travel. Well, not for me. It's not stressful to travel with your young adult kids. Was it stressful to you to travel with us?
No, not at all. We also had a very structured trip, especially like the majority of it, where it was like, because we were on that back road strip and it was like every day was planned. We got really lucky. I honestly think we would have been just as happy if the other families on the trip sucked because we're really good at common enemy intimacy. It's
Yeah.
kind of our family's bread and butter.
Well,
But
tell everyone what Backroads is, because they may not know.
Backroads is like this organization that takes people on trips around the world and it's like adventure trips. I think some of them are more resorty, but like hiking, biking, we kayaked, like they just kind of have it planned out. They have an itinerary, they make delicious food and different families. This was like a more of like an older kid family trip, but they'll do like singles trips, couples trips, family trips for little kids. And I became friends with one of the trip leaders and I was asking her, I was like, are all the people that sign up for this trip like usually as awesome? Because we got so lucky. Every family that was with us was fantastic. And she was like, no, like this is by far the best group I've ever been with. Like,
Really? We won?
Kat said that by far our trip was the most enjoyable simply because the people on it were wonderful. And I was like, are you just, blowing smoke? And she was like, no, I'm serious.
Well, y'all actually did become friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was not much older than you. They were trying to recruit Avery to become a
They
backroads
were.
leader.
They kept saying I should be a backroads leader. And
Anyway,
and talking loud enough for me to overhear with each other, like, wouldn't she be such a good backroads leader? First of
I
all, I wouldn't. I'm horrible at taking care of people.
well, I think you learn. I mean, that's what I was thinking, was they were so impressive, 25, 26-year-old who are trip leaders, and we felt so cared for. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were so I was like, after doing a trip like this, like, what job couldn't you do? I
Yeah, they did
mean,
not seem their age.
it's a lot to manage, and they
Right.
did a fantastic job.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so we signed up really. Okay, so here's the backstory. So the backstory is we like to take a trip during winter break. Mostly what spurs me into planning a trip, I'm not the greatest planner, is that I hate I hate being in town for my birthday. And so it's really my way of isolating and just being with the people I want to be with on my birthday, which is my little family. So I started planning. So I was like, we're going to take a back roads trip. And in my not detail, super like impulsive way, I looked, I saw that there was a cool trip to Patagonia, and I asked the family group chat who wants to go to Patagonia, sent the little brochure. All the kids were like, in. And
It's like my dream destination.
so I put down a deposit, and then it was time to plan, to do the adulting. The beautiful thing about a backroads trip is you get to show up and be a child. Like, they feed you, like all you have to do is get yourself there. They do all the details, and they kind of pride themselves on that, like making sure you've got the right food and the snacks and the itinerary and the activities. And for moms, because like vacations and kids being off school, like there's a lot of mom shit that comes along with that. It's exhausting. Like Christmas, I'm telling you, Christmas rolls around. I might have had Christmas envy as a kid. I do not have Christmas envy as a mom. It's a lot of work. So anyway, so I'm like, we're doing a backroads trip because I am feeling extra lazy this year. So I definitely don't want to do any planning. So put the deposit down on Patagonia. Then it's time for the adulting, which is how do you get to Patagonia? And looking at all those details. And that's where Avery's dad, Scott, comes in, and he does those details. He's very detail oriented, very type A. And immediately he starts peeing in our Cheerios and telling us that it's very hard to get to Patagonia. It's going to eat up 2 days of travel there, 2 days of travel back. We don't have that much time. It's just not the kind of trip that you take when you have a limited amount of time for winter break and blah, blah, blah,
And
blah, blah.
normally we'll steamroll him when he tries to be a naysayer because it's kind of his specialty, but he was actually right in this case.
Yeah. So at first, I did start to steamroll him, but then he's wise. He's wise to our steamrolling ways. So he's like, so he gets the travel agent from Backroads involved. And so then I see the exchanges with her where she basically confirms what a pain in the ass it is to get to Patagonia. And so once I start to see that it is a pain, it's not going to work. So then I realize I've put this deposit down, so I have to choose somewhere that's easier to get to, and yada, yada, yada. We ended up going to Hawaii. So, which is not, it's not a quick trip from Texas, but it's not Patagonia 2 days of travel.
It's not too bad of a consolation prize. Like, oh no, Hawaii.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
Right. And I was like, I don't, it wasn't like we were like, we are dying to go to Hawaii, but it was like, it doesn't suck to go to Hawaii. We're going to go to Hawaii. So we go to Hawaii. So we decide that we're going to do the back roads part, and then on the Big Island, and then we're going to go and spend, a few days in Kauai, just like rent a little house. And Avery's older brother couldn't get that much time off work. So he's not going to come to the backroads part. It's just going to be my 2 younger kids, me and Scott, on the backroads part. And then we'll all convene in Kauai after backroads. So it's funny that you say it was so structured, because really it was completely planned in the laziest way, down to once we were on the backroads part, I started, so that's that week, realizing, oh, well, when this part's over, then we go over to Kauai. And I all of a sudden realized, oh shit, this trip ends on Christmas. And then we fly over to Kauai on Christmas, and everything's closed on Christmas, and we're renting an Airbnb. We're not going to be in a hotel. What are we going to eat on Christmas Day? Like, just knowing we're going to get there and we're going to be moving into this little house and we're not going to have any food. So I start scrambling. I start trying to do a grocery order, and Kauai is a tiny town. So it's not like, there's a lot of options. And so anyway, long story short, I ended up thank God, the Airbnb landlord was super nice and accommodating, and she did the grocery shopping for me the day before. and got in the house. And and we were still scrambling to try and find a reservation for Christmas night. And I said, worst comes to worst, we'll just have pizza. We'll just make frozen pizza and make the best of it. Well, turns out we made frozen pizza. We picked up like a cheesy salad from this gross little market.
It was delicious, honestly. It was a fantastic meal, and it was the last minute. I
Fantastic.
mean, we talked about on this trip the Rubenstein fashion, how my parents are actually quite irresponsible, and how I was always the kid on field trips where my permission slips weren't signed, and they'd pull me aside while we were about to do the 5 mile hike, and they'd be like, "Your parents didn't sign off on this. We have to use the satellite phone to call them."
Well, then the truth is, it's because with Avery, I was still pretending to I was like, oh, I'm the mom. I'm going to be the one that handles doing all the things, the paperwork things. But that is really not my skill set. And by Corey, Scott had taken over. And so Corey, that didn't happen so much. Corey usually had all the things filled out the minute everything was sent out. It was scanned and sent back because Scott had taken over. But with Avery, that hadn't happened yet. So she was sharing multiple stories of like being the kid.
It happened like a lot of times. It was so embarrassing every time too. I was always that kid.
I
And
mean,
then we would have to wait an extra hour.
have you noticed my sleeping baby? She's not budging now. Oh my God.
Yeah, she's
She's
very
about
restful.
to breastfeed.
She literally looks like an infant.
Oh my God, she's so cute. She's so cute.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the truth. And then what else happened? Okay, so I realized we didn't have food. So then we're all there at the Airbnb, and it's just like this little cottage, and we're so happy were we in Hawaii? We didn't, it didn't matter if we were in Hawaii. We're like, oh my God, it's so nice outside. It's dark though. So now we're going to make frozen pizza and eat like a doctored up, gross little salad from the market. And then
It wasn't gross.
Corey's like, this is the best meal we've had since we've been in Hawaii. I'm like, oh yeah.
Backwards is making us like gourmet meals. We ate some of the best sushi we've ever had in our lives.
Yeah. He's like, this frozen pizza. So then we watched a movie, and like the Airbnb was like 2 bedrooms and a loft. And it really would have been perfect for like a family with little kids. But Avery was happy. Avery and
I
us.
was overjoyed.
Yeah. We got the rooms. There was AC, little AC units in the rooms. Meanwhile, so that first night I go up to the loft. That's where the boys are going to be sleeping, who are, almost 6 feet tall man children with like hairy legs and lots of testosterone. And it's like these 2 twin size beds where for sure their feet were going to hang off. There's no AC up there. I'm like scrambling and like opening windows, and they're like, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. I was like, oh God, anyway,
They act low maintenance,
but it was fine. They actually, they seemed
were
fine.
not to me.
What'd they say to you?
They were like, you bitch, like taking the room. Corey was like, it's so fucking entitled.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, they were all mad at me the first morning because they had slept horribly, and then I was like, "Oh, I'll switch with you," and then I just never brought it up again, and they were fine.
I think they got used to it.
I got used to it.
No, but it made me laugh because I was like, every night we just stayed in and watched movies. Really, like we could have been in Hawaii or we could have been in Houston, Texas. Like,
yeah, there was just a prettier view outside the window.
But we did do some exploring during the day, and that was fun.
We should have known for next time to plan ahead with Kauai because you have to book all those reservations for the park.
Yeah, but we saw a lot of cool stuff. You saw whales.
We saw. Oh my God, I saw my first whale. I saw a lot of whales jumping all the way out. It was really cool.
We went on some fun hikes.
We had to kill a full day living in the car.
Oh, so there's the other hilarious story. So we spent a day experiencing houselessness. So the other scheduling hiccup was
Horrible to say.
I also realized, like, once I realized, oh God, we're going to get there on Christmas Day and there's not going to be any food. Then I also thought of, like, maybe the next day I thought, oh, I wonder what time checkout is. And so I realized that checkout was on Saturday at 10 a.m. and it's the busiest week of the year. So the Airbnb landlord, she had it immediately rented to someone else. So we couldn't do a late checkout. Like, we should have rented it for another day because our flight wasn't until 9:40 that night. So we leave the place at 10 a.m. and we our flight's not till 9:40. We've got this, I mean, that minivan, God bless it, but it looked like a shit storm.
It looked like someone had been living in it for months. It was
One day.
disgusting. And the floor was completely covered in sand. It was disgusting.
We covered some ground that day. We saw that the Grand Canyon of Hawaii.
It was really
We
neat.
we got to see some whales. It was the only day it rained. We got stuck in the rain. We shopped for gifts to bring back to people.
And we tried to shove all those gifts in our overstuffed suitcases.
Yeah,
We bought way too much stuff.
no, we did carry-ons for 9 days or 10 days, and it was never again. It was silly to do carry-on.
Well, we thought that we had to for back roads, and then we showed up and people had massive suitcases. I actually liked how it made me feel. It made me feel really low maintenance. So
God, but they were stuffed to the gills. It was so stressful every time we had to repack and unpack and repack because we were like using air compression bags. It was
and we stayed in about 5 different places too. So
to change for the plane. We want to have like a last sushi meal. So Alec does some research. He finds a good sushi place, a good Yelp review. We show up and it had been like raining off and on all day. And it's a sushi food truck not too far from the airport, which turned out to be delicious and a delightful experience. They had a great sound system, but they had these like picnic tables under these, like, I don't know what they were. It was like a sushi suka. It was like
did look like a sucker.
And so, which is like also known as like a little, I don't know, metal tent. It was like a metal tent. So anyway, that we were like taking towels out of the car to like wipe off the tables because they were wet. So we changed, but we really have to pee and we really have to change for the plane because we've been in the same clothes all day. So we drive across the highway to go and break in and go to the Costco bathroom, but Costco closes at 6. So then we have to go over to the Home Depot, and Avery and I are literally like bathing in the sink and changing our clothes in the Home Depot bathroom.
It was like method acting. We were cosplaying as houseless people.
I mean, it was good perspective for a day.
It was good perspective for a day because it sucked.
Yeah. Yeah. It sucked, but it was also kind of hilarious.
Well, I was in a bad mood because I had that freak out where
You want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about that?
Am I allowed? Yeah, it was
Yeah,
not a
you
big
can
deal.
talk about it.
It was like we were in the car and Alex kind of messed with me his whole life, so I'm kind of sensitive, my older brother. And I was minding my own business. I think I was trying to sleep in the car and he like strokes my neck.
He was in the third row and you were in one of the captain chairs
Yes.
in the van.
He stroked my neck in a very light way that felt like a bug on me. And he's so annoying when he does it. He like does like a little face. He's like, and I screamed. I don't know why. It was just my instinct was like, stop! Like I yelled it really loud. And my dad was like, Jesus, like noise pollution. And then we had just gotten to the beach, so we were getting out to whale watch and whatever, walk around. And so I feel myself starting to tear up. And I'm 23 and I don't want to sit there and cry because my older brother messed with me in front of my family. Like, it's just embarrassing. So I said, could you please open the door? I'm going to go ahead. And they opened the door and I walked ahead. And I, for some reason, had like a full breakdown. Like, whatever. And then my dad came out and he apologized for his part and whatever. But it put me in such a bad mood. And then my day was saved because I saw my first whale, or my first like big whale.
But do you think that freak out and then the release you had, like, do you feel like it was like it needed to happen, or do you think
Yeah, I wasn't, I mean, I didn't hold on to it afterwards. It was, I feel like I would have if I had just sat there and like in the car and like whatever. But no, I went out, I cried for a second, went and watched some whales, and then I was fine.
But do you think that, so do you think it was a release, or here's another thought, do you think it was like muscle memory of like what went on when you were younger, and like feeling the same feelings and the same reaction and the big tears that would have
Mm-hmm.
happened when you were like with younger you, before you had a better relationship with him and know what you know now?
I think that the like actual interaction was muscle memory. Like when I screamed, when I started crying, I think I broke the pattern when I left the car.
Mm,
And it felt really good. I was like, that was a really good decision. I'm glad.
hmm.
And of course I was like, oh, they all think I'm dramatic, like they think I'm being dramatic, whatever. I knew Alec was probably talking shit about me in the car. But it felt good to step away and like have my moment by myself because
He
I'm
what?
also grown. I
Yeah,
don't need
he
someone to like
wasn't
comfort me.
he didn't say anything. You know, it was interesting. I noticed the pattern. I picked up on some nuances of that pattern, and I think I told you.
With
Did
dad.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like and with myself. So that happened, and then dad said like, Jesus, which is the gaslighting pattern that
He
both,
said like that was a reaction or something like that.
yeah, like there was something that felt kind of gaslighty, which
Yeah.
he and I were guilty of doing to you many times when y'all were kids. So like some little tiny nuanced Alec thing would happen, and that wasn't, it was, it was hard. It was almost like, it was sly. It was hard to see. Like, and he also was kind of covered, because if he's like, I just touched your neck, I love
Yeah,
you.
it was like a gentle,
Yeah.
yeah, which he does to me all the time now. He's figured out how to adult mess with me where he'll pet my hair or he'll because he knows I'm just one of those people I don't like to be touched. Like not a hugger, just and he's very aware.
Yeah.
And so he'll just do little like loving things to me.
Air quotes, loving.
Loving, it's not loving. It's just trying to make me mad.
And it works. And
And
so
it
anyway,
works.
so I saw the big reaction, and then I felt myself go into the pattern of, I felt like a deer in the headlights. Like I kind of like all of a sudden froze. And then the thing I noticed was like dad saying the thing, which frankly, it could have been him, it could have been me, either one of us, because we were both guilty of that. So I saw him go into that, and I noticed a tiny chuckle, almost, you wouldn't have, it was like almost undetected, like a tiny little chuckle.
From dad.
Yeah. Or there was some little, and I was like,
It was like a
oh,
laughter in his voice.
yeah, there was a
Yeah.
little, and I was thinking, oh, that mess with Avery behavior somehow, I think, got reinforced. I think it was a like like trying to get, it was almost like a boys club thing, and it was
Because now
very,
Corey does it too.
yeah, it was very nuanced, but it was
Hmm.
reinforced from dad, which I think is like, he's in like big brother mode. It's almost like you might as well be Aunt Carolyn in that moment.
Right. It's funny though how because like Alec cares about dad's validation. Corey doesn't give a shit about dad's validation. He cares about Alec's validation.
Yeah.
And so it's like this trickle down effect.
This little trickle down boys club. Yeah. Yeah. Like
Hmm.
bros society or something. So I saw it. I saw it happen. I saw myself get frozen. And what I would normally do is I would have normally then got out of the car and gone after you,
Hmm.
and sort of like tried to comfort you.
I didn't want anyone to come
Right.
comfort me.
But
Yeah.
also knowing that you didn't want me to comfort you, and also kind of like not knowing what to say because I didn't want to, not wanting to make it worse, especially since I have become, however many years ago when I became aware of the gaslighting pattern, where Alec would do some tiny thing and then you would have a big reaction. And then we would say, Avery, like settle down,
Mm-hmm.
don't stop. He's just trying to be sweet to you, or he's just trying, and so we would do that accidentally. And, so since I've become aware of that pattern, I don't want to do that, but it's almost like I don't know what to say because there's the leftover baggage of us doing that for so long. So when these episodes happen, it's kind of like there's really nothing I can say. So I'll find myself kind of frozen. So instead of getting out of the car to go after you and comfort you, after I noticed that little, sort of bros society, tiny nuanced thing, I turned to Dad and I said, I think I called him out and I said, like, you're the dad, not the big brother. Go after her. And I think we both said, like, when he did the big reaction, I think we both said, like, or maybe I said, gaslighting's not helpful right now.
Mm-hmm.
So there was some call to it. And so my disrupting the old pattern was me not just jumping out and kind of holding Dad a little more accountable and telling Dad to go. And
he was ashamed of it. Like I think he had been he'd been trailing me for a little bit while I walked to the beach. He was just walking like 10 feet behind me.
This is all happening on the houseless day.
Yeah, this is all on a houseless day, so we're all dirty too. And I get to the beach and I'm watching this whale, and he comes up to me and I was like, "Did you see there's a whale?" Trying to be like, "It's fine, I'm fine now." And he was like, "I'm really sorry that I added to that." I was like, "It's okay." And I think probably when I was a kid, that would have been really helpful. And even like if you were the one to come after me, not going and being like, it's okay, just like kind of being in my space would have been helpful. Now, I mean, I've gone to years and years of therapy and I know how to deal with my stuff. I know how to calm myself
Wait,
down.
so what would have been helpful? What would my role have been when y'all were
Just kind of
little?
like, because it's a big thing, like even during like panic attacks and, whenever people have heightened reactions to things, they just need to calm down, and sometimes it takes someone else to regulate them. And so I think for me, I sometimes will get really, you know, frantic and just feel like a lot at once. Just having someone exist in the same space as me is what I've noticed from just experience with my friends and stuff. Someone existing in the same space as me and just being a quiet ally is helpful.
Yeah.
And not feeling rushed to feel better.
Yeah. And I think for me, I would have had to have been taught that. Like less
Right.
is more, no words, just be with the
And even
person.
the words can be like, take your time.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of times I would notice, like, and I still feel this way when I'm upset about something, I want to immediately get over it because I feel like everyone's waiting for me to get over it. Like, even when I felt those tears coming on, I was like, stop, just don't cry. Just don't cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, like, when I've had panic attacks, that one panic attack that Riley helped me with, the most helpful thing she said to me was like, you're safe, you're fine, take your time. I was like, oh, I don't need to go anywhere. No one's rushing me.
That's the Peter Levine story of when the guy falls and he's
Mm-hmm.
just like goes and sits with him and
Yeah.
and it's like, I'm right here.
Mm-hmm.
We're just
Yeah,
gonna stay sitting here. There's no rush. Right? Like,
exactly.
yeah, I think that's very
Yeah, the lack of
helpful.
rush to move through emotion. I feel like that's a lot of things why things are unresolved for people and why people hold on to things is because they're rushed through their reactions and they don't get to actually process them.
Yeah, I think that's helpful. Okay, so the other topic that I wanted, because of course I had to bring it up today on one of the threads with my moms, and Lindsay said we need Avery to make us uh we need for the app some content on this term, because I was telling the story about our conversation with you and the theme of weaponized incompetence. And me and Dad the other night about the food processor story, where we were trying to determine whether it was weaponized incompetence or not. Turns out it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was, which was Scott wanted to wake me up from a nap because he was going to make this. He's just started cooking. So it's a whole big deal. And there's a lot of hiccups in terms of our dynamic. And there's a lot of what Avery has taught us. There's a lot of weaponized incompetence, which means, can you just easily define it?
Yeah, it's pretending pretending that you don't know how to complete an easily learned task so that someone else will do it for you. Like, we have YouTube. You can learn anything. I could build a table right now if I wanted to.
And do you think it's a more of, like, is it a term that's used more with men?
It's used more with men, although Baxter tells me I do it all the time.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
About what?
I don't know. A lot of times cooking, which I've received it, and I don't ask him things anymore. I just look up a video. Like, if I didn't know how to dice an onion, and I just looked up a video instead of asking him. But I can't think of a specific example, but there are a couple times where he's like, "That's weaponized incompetence," because I say it to him. Yeah.
What do you say it to him about?
Little things like he doesn't know how to get a stain out of his clothes, or I don't know what, like, a lot of cleaning and things like that. He's like, acts like he doesn't know how to do it, and I'm like, it's pretty figure outable. The directions are on the box, you know.
But you do it so well.
Yeah, he's like, but you know how to do it, and oh, can you? He was like, he was missing a button on a shirt for a long time, like one of his favorite shirts that we thrifted together, and he has a lot of chest hair. And I was like, you look gross. Like, you need to put a button on that. And he's like, I don't know how. And I said, but it's a sewing machine. I have a sewing kit on my desk. Do you want to try? He was like, well, I just don't know how to sew. Like, I feel like you'd do it better than me. And I was like, well, maybe I could do it better, but it's a button. Like, it doesn't have to look pretty. You can just do it. And he was like, okay. And so once I saw him watching a video on how to do it, then I was like, okay, hand me your shirt, hand me the button, I'll do it. I was like, it was like a little kid moment. I was like, once he showed me he was capable, then I did it for him. But yeah, we're pretty good about not using weaponized incompetence because we'll call each other out, and we're both very prideful and we don't want to get called out on it.
And what happens is, I think it's like, I can speak for myself. Like, if he's like, oh, I got this stain, I'm going to have to throw this shirt away. And I'm like, no, you're not. And he's like, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, I'll just do it for you. And then if I get the stain out, I get a lot of positive reinforcement.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh, how did you know how to do that? You always do, you know? And so then it's almost like it's a little stroke of your ego.
Well, it feels good to be needed. Same way
Right.
that you would make us all sandwiches every second, you know?
Yeah, right. And so, you know, so I think it goes on both sides. But so back to the debate, whether it was weaponized incompetence or not, about Dad and the food processor. So there's a lot of hiccups in us learning how to cook together because we are polar opposites in pretty much almost everything that we do. And so he's very by the book, and he follows, you know, a recipe has to be exact. And if we don't have the exact, like last night we were making this recipe and it called for a yellow onion, but all we had was a red onion. And he's like, guess I'm gonna have to go back to the store. And I'm like, no, we can use a red onion. He's like, no, we can't. And I'm like, yes, we can. He's like, it calls for a yellow onion. That's entirely wrong. And frankly, last night, I just didn't want to deal with him because I knew it wasn't an exact recipe. It was like, you know, we watched a video from like delish.com because you have to like
Mhm.
pay for a subscription to get the recipe. They were blurring the recipe. And so I couldn't see the recipe. So I watched a video. So I knew it wasn't exact measurements of anything, but I've been making dinner for like, 25 years. So I do know a thing. But the problem is that when we make a recipe, whether it's exact or it's not exact, I'm just like doing it. And he could just handle a different task, but instead what he does is his overfunctioner part comes in, and then he starts asking me to justify the parts that I'm taking care of. He's
Right.
like,
It's
well,
like Baxter.
right. And so he's like, the recipe says that the shallots are supposed to be thin. We got into such a fight about the thinness of the shallots. I can't even tell you. And he's like, I was like, they're thin enough. And I get that voice. Like I'm just done. Like, I'm like, no, like after 25 years of me just doing everything. And now you're taking part, but like now I have to justify the thinness of my shallots. Like they're fine. And he's like, well, it says they're supposed to be thin. And I'm like, they're thin. They're fine. He's like, well, do you want me just to go through and make them a little thinner? And I'm like, no, I don't. I want you to read the recipe and find a task that hasn't been done yet and handle that. And I know, I think I said, you know what would be helpful? Rather than being an overfunctioner, so then I went into name calling. Rather than doing your overfunctioning thing and correcting what I have already completed, it would be helpful if you would just find a task that hasn't been done yet and complete that. And then he was just not in the mood and he just like left the kitchen.
He's so different from me when I perform a task that's not my area of expertise.
Why?
Like when I cook with Baxter, I'm so self-conscious. Like convinced I'm doing everything wrong, asking for validation on every step.
Well, it might be
Because
a male female thing. Like, it's like,
it could be, but he's also such a good cook. And I'm such a not good cook. Although we will have fights like that where it'll be like, I'll chop up garlic and I'll do an extra clove or something. And he's like, oh, it called for 3 cloves instead of 4. And I'll be like, so you just called me dumb? And then he'll drop the argument. And I'm like, it's garlic. Like, it's more is better.
and
It's
how do you
fine.
know how big those cloves are? It's kind of an eyeball
Yeah.
situation
Yeah,
anyway.
exactly. I used my best judgment. Or that's how
Yeah.
many I grabbed.
Well, so back to so there's been several instances this week. So the food processor he tried to wake me up from a nap on Sunday because he wanted to make this thing that we had talked about, that he wanted to make these like seed cracker things. He really wanted the seed cracker things made. And I said, and normally I would have said like, okay, we can make that, which would have been mostly me making it. But instead I was like, oh, the recipe looks like it's a chemistry experiment. Perfect for your wiring. You can handle this. You'll do this. And he was like,
It was
oh,
like baking.
yeah. I was like, this is perfect. Like, I'll for sure fuck this up. So you should do this anyway. So we had already established that. So he gets all of his little bowls, like it's a cooking show, everything measured out before we go and lay down. This is on a Sunday.
I do that too.
I was like, oh my gosh, that's just,
If I were a better cook, I wouldn't do it, but it's because I'm scared of messing
I
up.
don't know. I mean, it was pretty impressive, but it's just not the way I roll. I'm not that organized. So, so then he tried. Oh, thanks for the thumbs up.
I don't know why.
I don't know why that did. So then he tried. I hear him try. He's like, I hear him like not like shaking me to wake me up, but he was like, I really want to go make, like muttering under his breath. I really want to go make that. And so I just like squeeze my eyes shut and pretend that I'm still sleeping and completely ignore him. But then I come out later and I waited a good long while like that. Then I was like kind of awake, but then I like did something, watched something, listened to something, and just hung out in the bedroom for a while longer. And so when I came out, those crackers were already in the oven. And I'm like, oh, looks like you figured it out. Looks like you figured out how to make it. He's like, well, I had to watch several videos about the food processor. I didn't even know where the food processor was. I don't even know what a food processor looks like. And I said, well, that's that's weaponized incompetence right there. Was you waking me up from the nap or trying to because you didn't know what a food processor was? He goes, well, I didn't. I was like, well, we got that food processor for our wedding. So we've had it for 28 years and it's been
It's
on
also
our,
a Google image search.
but it's also been on our counter for 28 years. And so I was like, so that's on you. Plus, plus you can look up, how do you use a food processor? He goes, well, I did, but ours is so old. I couldn't even find a model that looked exactly like ours. So then I really had to do a deep dive to find one that was that old.
Did you just
And
look up the model?
I don't know what he did because I said, I know none of this is an argument. I'm telling you, this is what Avery refers to as weaponized incompetence, that you even think this is an argument because what's the result? He goes, that I had to spend a lot of time trying to figure something out that you knew. And if you would have just gotten up, you could have come and shown me. And I said, well, looks like the crackers are baking. So you did figure it out. And he goes, but that's not weaponized incompetence if it's something that you just actually don't know. I was like, wait. So then we called you to give us,
Yes, it is.
right, to give us a quick, because he was still arguing that that wasn't weaponized incompetence because he actually didn't know something and I actually had the knowledge. So why wouldn't I just share the knowledge versus him having to be resourceful and figure it out?
Right. Baxter and I had a conversation about when so the first time I like made him a big meal, I made him this big soup. I didn't even like it called for like it was an Instagram recipe, so it was like pretty not by the book. I was figuring a lot of it out. And like just a video with like a list of like the ingredients, but not like the amount. And I didn't even know what bok choy was, but I figured it out. I looked up how to cut it.
It's
Looked up if
delicious.
I wanted
I love
baby or
bok
yeah,
choy.
it's my new favorite
Yeah.
veggie. But we were talking about that instance because he came home to this beautiful dish. He usually makes dinner every night, and he said I was like telling him about dad and the food processor, and he was like, "Yeah, what you did was weaponized competence because it was powerful." I was like, "Yeah, I like
Weaponized
that."
competence. I like it. I like it.
Yeah, he was like the opposite of weaponized incompetence. He didn't ask me a single question. He just figured it out.
But let's talk about like tell me what all the people your age, all the strong, smart women. I have that on my vision board. It's my new favorite. I
Mm-hmm.
keep finding myself repeating it. It's strong women, may we know them, may we be them, may we raise them.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that good? Powerful.
Such a mama warrior.
Mm-hmm. So like all the strong women of your generation who are coming up with terms like weaponized incompetence, what are they saying in terms of like educating yourselves and each other and like how we're now educating dad about it? Like, what do they say? Like the point of all of it is?
I mean, like a big thing that people have been talking about now, especially with um like where women are right now in our society, is stop doing free labor. Like they want you to, especially it's been circulating again, but this fuck ass NFL guy gave this graduation speech at a college and basically said in the graduation speech with college graduates, like these girls, your place is in the home, and the most successful thing you'll ever do in your life is have children. And everyone's like, what the hell? And all of a sudden it's like this big conversation of, well, they want us to like now we have to work a job because of blah 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 feminism and whatever, and they want us to do all the labor at home, and so we're doing all this free labor, and men don't want part of that. And so the weaponized incompetence comes in because they're like, stop doing everything for them, let them fucking figure it out. Like, just act like you don't know how to do it. You don't need their validation for being good at things. You don't need their praise. Like, because I will say, like, even when I sewed that button on for Baxter and he was like, you're so good at that, you're so talented, it felt really good to hear him say that. I was like, yeah, I rock. And then I was thinking about it, I was like, I sewed a button onto a shirt. Like, I learned how to do that in pre-K. literally when I sewed maps in Miss Josie's class.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, it's just become a whole conversation of we need to stop doing everything for them because nothing we will ever do will earn respect of men that don't respect us already.
Well, I also think it's like if I think about dad and me cooking together and trying to figure this out, he feels so much pride as a participant, like making the meal.
Right.
Like he has, like I can tell he's into it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
he's versus just sitting there coming home, you know, I was feeling resentful because now it's like there's no kids at home. So he was coming home and we both work. I mean, I think his job's a little more taxing than mine, but whatever. And he comes home and I'm the one who's like I was like, I mean, by 4 o'clock, it was like I still had kids at home thinking about what are we gonna have for dinner and then getting it started. And then he comes home and he's like relaxing and watching something on his iPad in the kitchen. And I'm making the dinner for both of us. And I was getting pissed about it. And,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's like, I'm all in. So now we're trying to figure out how to do it together. And I'm a little bit of an asshole because I'm like, don't make me justify. I've been making dinner for a long time, you know?
Right.
So I'm
Yeah, I
also
think
trying to, be nicer, which can be hard.
yeah. I think there's a lot of themes that come into play, including like changing of habits is acceptable even after almost 30 years. You know,
Yeah.
like just because someone's made dinner for the last 28 years doesn't mean that's going to continue for the next 30.
And he's into it. I mean, we have been for the whole last year, we've been, shopping for food, sort of planning our meals together, doing all that, boring domestic stuff. And he's into it. He loves going to the grocery store with me
Mm-hmm.
together, and so we have our little system down, but I think, you doing, every night, him eating whatever it is that I cooked, um, and being super appreciative and loving it, like I always felt like he was very appreciative, but I also think that like it sort of validated me, like, like if I'm
Mm-hmm.
not feeling super productive or I'm thinking, just whatever, I'm like, well, at least I'm doing this thing.
Right.
And so there was this like BS validation I got from it. But then also it's tiring to do all of it on you. And it's a little lonely and it's a little isolating. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not collaborative. It doesn't make me feel more connected necessarily. And so, sorry, Hazel has to reposition herself. Um, and so I was, where the result of all of it was I was left feeling more and more and more resentful, especially once it was very clear that it was, when I was cooking for you guys, I never felt resentful about that because, like, I don't know, it was just, part of what I wanted to do for you, what I wanted to do. If I had felt resentful, I would have changed it, but I didn't feel resentful when y'all were growing up because it's like, I just felt like, you were going to school, you were dealing with all that and activities and homework and all the things. And there's only so much time in a day, And so I don't know. I just kind of like was like, I want to feed them. And,
Right.
um, but as y'all got older, and especially now, like, even like I noticed it over break where I think I said something like, and you were very cognizant of it too. Like, I don't want to get stuck in the kitchen for hours. Like, if I'm making something for myself and you come in, I'm like, oh, I was making this thing.
I
Are
think
you
you
hungry?
said that over Thanksgiving.
Oh, I did.
Mm-hmm. It was a thing. That's why I was so careful about it on over winter break. Because every time, because it would be like you'd offer to make a sandwich, but it would be like I'd come into the kitchen, you'd offer to make me a sandwich, and then Alec would come into the kitchen, and then Corey would come into the kitchen, and you keep offering and offering, and we'd all take you up on it, and so then you're going back, and it would end up taking you up an hour and a half. But I think eventually you were like, I want to provide, and it feels good to give people things, but it also makes you resentful, which I've noticed happens to me a lot. Like because I clean, that's my job, is I clean the whole house. and it'll be like I'm on my knees scrubbing the bathtub or whatever, and I'm like, God, I'm so fucking pissed right now. Why is this always my job? And so then I'll, instead of, because I'll sit with it for a long time and I'll be like, start getting pissed at Baxter. I'll be like, ugh, I do everything. And I'll also be like, well, I can't complain because he makes me dinner. Can't complain because he makes me dinner. Same with Dad, probably for years. I can't complain because he's the one working all the day. And
Well, I've
eventually
been
I was
working
like,
for a long time too, but it's that he
right,
pays for the majority of our lifestyle.
right. And eventually I was like, well, it's not like I leave Baxter to cook every night. I'm sous chefing every night. I'm sitting there chopping everything that he needs, stirring what he needs. Like, he's not alone in the kitchen. And so finally I was like, hey, you make the bed today. You clean the bathtub. Like, and he would push back. He's like, well, I don't know what spray to use. And
Weaponized incompetence.
I don't tuck in the blankets the way that you do. He's like, I don't know how the blankets go on the bed. He's like, do you like so many blankets? I'm like, fucking, it's fine. No one's coming in to stage our home. Figure it out. You use bleach in the bathtub. Good luck.
Yeah, and if you go to the thing of like me justifying in my mind, like, well, he's the one who is, his job pays for X, Y, and Z. And then also remembering, what about all this unpaid labor that I've done for a quarter of a century?
Exactly.
If you put a price tag on how much it would cost to take care of your kids and to have somebody do all the things that you do to run a home.
He paid for the lifestyle, but you are the lifestyle.
Right. Like there's also, a price on that. So I think it's like where we start to realize our value and we start to hold other people accountable. And I think this is how you end male privilege is weaponized incompetence. We have to put a stop and call bullshit on weaponized incompetence. And that's how we untrain male privilege.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it goes hand in hand with ego. And like a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like entitlement. Like,
Yeah.
I look at what I provide. You do that. You know what the food processor does. You do that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'm willing to do the task. You do the little things.
Yeah. I'm too self-important to like know about these things.
And exactly. It's like, just learn.
Yeah.
Then two people know. Yay.
I mean, honestly, Dad's kind of the opposite of that in most things. Like he loves knowing all about all the details of all the things. He's
right.
He does many the truth is I think he does more tasks around here than I do in many ways. But I know a lot of women listening to this podcast. It's a very different situation. And so it's like, well, where do you even start to re-educate your partner?
God, it probably takes so long if you're married to them.
I mean,
you can do it 100%. It just takes one day at a time. But obviously they weren't married. I've had a lot of friends come to me because I'm kind of known as the misandrist of my friend group a little bit.
Explain what a misandrist is.
It's like misogyny, but like against men. And they'll come and they'll be like, oh, blah, 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 this, and this. And they'll give me all these examples of gaslighting and weaponized incompetence. I'm like, get out of there. No, not worth even putting in the effort. Leave him. Obviously, they don't have children with him and, a life. It's different. You can still train a man, but if you're seeing signs of that before you've even...
Most of them need training.
Most of them need... I trained back. He also helped me, but in a lot of ways, I trained him.
Although Baxter came pretty
lovely, and I taught him a lot about empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
yeah.
I think you just, look, I will say it's very helpful when you have a strong daughter, because then you can like do the double steamrolling. And I mean, it's just, I don't know what man, would be able to stand up to the two of us together. I mean, it's just,
Sometimes I feel bad.
I
He's like a
know,
puppy. It's like kicking a puppy.
I know. At this point, and he's so good at this point too.
He's pretty good.
He's pretty good. Okay, I think we've had a good recap. Yeah. So, all right, everyone. Hope that was just delightful being a fly on the wall of our riveting
Forgot we
conversation.
were recording.
And until next week or the week after. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com. We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help you help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love, love, love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.